Disclaimer. This content may dramatize real events and include speculation. Viewer discretion is advised as details may not be fully verified. The court session was expected to start like any normal day. But everything changed when prosecutors said they would present graphic pictures as evidence. Everyone inside the courtroom got tense. Then came a shock. A former secret lover of Diddy stepped up as a witness, wearing a creepy smile. What happened next caught everyone off guard. She launched a brutal attack against the music mogul, all centered around a nickname he had once begged her to keep private. She called it the Tootsie Roll. One image after another appeared on the screen, and Diddy sat frozen at the defense table. His head dropped into his hands, tears streaming down his face. With every new reveal, the room echoed with gasps. This wasn't just someone telling a story, it was a total collapse in public. And as for Diddy, he couldn't use his lawyers to shield himself anymore. Tension had already been building in the courtroom.
That morning, Diddy's defense team tried to distract by arguing over technical rules, but that all changed when the prosecutors asked to call a surprise witness. A wave of silence passed through the courtroom. Reporters leaned forward. Even Diddy, usually cold and unreadable, leaned toward his lawyer and whispered something. "Your Honor," the lead prosecutor said, "we call witness J, codename Yasmin T." There was a moment of complete silence. Then, from a side door, a tall woman walked in, calm, serious, dressed in all black, gold earrings and heels clicking with confidence. Even though her identity was sealed officially, every major news outlet in the room knew exactly who she was. She was a former model and influencer who had been linked to Diddy nearly 10 years ago. Back in 2012, the media had nicknamed her the Yacht Girl, after she was photographed with Diddy on a boat in Saint-Tropez. Now she entered federal court holding a folder in one hand and a USB drive in the other.
As she took her seat, the bailiff asked her to state her name. She looked straight at Diddy and said, "Yasmin Taylor." Then she placed the USB on the stand. "What's on this drive," she said with a steady voice, "is the truth about the man sitting over there, and the things he begged me to keep hidden." Everyone in the courtroom froze. Diddy didn't even blink, but his jaw tightened. The judge told the prosecutors to explain what was on the drive before showing anything. Yasmin leaned toward the microphone and said, "They're pictures. He sent them to me when we were together. He called them private. I call them proof." When asked to explain more, she gave a small smile and said, "Let's just say the man behind the fame isn't quite as big as he pretends to be." Gasps spread through the courtroom gallery. One juror's face turned bright red. The judge ordered everyone to stay quiet. Diddy stared down at the table, not moving.
Nobody had said the phrase Tootsie Roll yet, but the mood had already turned from legal to humiliating. And for the first time, Diddy looked like he wished he could disappear. The room sat completely still as the judge allowed Yasmin to continue speaking. She pulled the mic closer, looked briefly at the jury, and turned her attention to the laptop, now showing the contents of her USB. "I met him in 2011, she began. He was charming, rich, generous, but very insecure, especially about himself." She cleared her throat and kept going. He had a name for his private part. He called it the Tootsie Roll. Said it was sweet, small, but impossible to resist. The courtroom gasped again, and some people laughed quietly in the back rows. One juror covered her mouth. Even the court reporter hesitated before typing that phrase, like she couldn't believe what she just heard. Diddy lifted his head briefly, then looked back down. "He told me to never say it in public," Yasmin went on.
"He begged me, said it would ruin him, said no one would take him seriously ever again." Then the prosecution brought up the first image from the USB. Picture 1. A mirror selfie Diddy took in a bathroom and sent to Yasmin during their private messages. The photo showed a caption that said, "Tootsie says good morning." More gasps followed. Diddy dropped his head back into his hands. The next image came up. This time, it was taken in a hotel room. It wasn't explicit, but it was definitely revealing. And again, the caption read, "Tootsie's out to play." The courtroom couldn't hold back anymore. One juror turned completely away from the screen. The judge slammed his gavel and ordered everyone to settle down. But it was already too late. Diddy looked like he had aged 10 years in just minutes. Yasmin remained calm and collected. He thought power would protect him, she said.
But the truth is, it's the smallest things that take down the biggest men. As more images showed up on the screen, it no longer felt like a legal trial. It turned into a total meltdown in front of everyone. Each new image was more awkward than the one before. They weren't illegal or obscene, but they were deeply embarrassing, painful, too personal. Image 3. Diddy posing in front of a mirror, flexing with one hand and holding a champagne bottle in the other. He pointed at his groin. The caption said, "Little guy, big dreams." Image 4. A blurry close-up of what looked like his private area, covered in silk, with a text bubble that read, "Tootsie shy today, don't laugh." At that moment, Diddy completely broke down. His body shook as he leaned over the table. His lawyer tried to comfort him, but Diddy slowly pushed his chair back, turned away from the screen, and wiped his tears with his sleeve. The room was silent.
Still sitting on the stand, Yasmin leaned in again. "That's the thing," she said. "He always cried when he felt like he was losing control. Always." Her tone was no longer mocking. It sounded flat, maybe even sad. But she wasn't finished yet. "He used to send me these pictures after we had fights," she continued, as if it was a way to apologize or a peace offering. "He liked being laughed at in private, but now the world is laughing." The prosecutor asked why she kept the pictures. Her answer was short and direct. "Because I knew someday the world would need to see who he really is behind the money and the fame." She looked straight at Diddy. He used to call himself King Tootsie. Yasmin's words hit hard. Diddy kept sobbing, this time not hiding his face. His arms were folded on the table and he cried into them. No one in the room said a word. When the judge announced a short 15-minute break, the courtroom stayed completely still.
No one got up. No one whispered. Because in just a few photos, everything people believed about Diddy had shattered. After the break, people returned to their seats, but the air felt even heavier. Diddy stayed hunched at the defense table. His face was red and wet, and he wouldn't lift his head. His lawyer leaned in and whispered something, but Diddy didn't reply. Then the judge gave the go-ahead. The prosecutor could continue with Yasmin Taylor's testimony. And what had started as a few light jabs now turned into a full-on public takedown. Yasmin leaned into the microphone, still calm, but now colder, like she had practiced what she was about to say. She wasn't just sharing her experience anymore. She was there to tear down whatever was left of Diddy's public image. "He hated when I called it small, so I started calling it cute instead," she said with a sharp grin. "He liked that better. But sometimes I tease him and call it a tic-tac."
Laughter broke out in the back rows. The judge banged his gavel again, but the damage had already been done. Diddy's shoulders tightened visibly. Yasmin kept going. "He had certain rules," she said. "He only wanted the lights off. He made me talk to it like it was a baby. He'd tell me to say things like, 'King Tootsie needs love.'" It was weird. Gasps returned, this time mixed with chuckles and shocked faces from the jury. One man on the jury scratched the back of his neck. Clearly uncomfortable. Two women on the jury looked away, eyes wide in disbelief. Then the fifth image was shown. It was on the big screen for everyone to see. Diddy stood in front of a mirror wearing a silk robe. And written in lipstick across the mirror were the words, "Queen Yaz loves the Tootsie." This time, Diddy didn't just cry. He slammed his hand on the table and whispered under his breath, Please stop. The judge called for silence again.
But Yasmin wasn't finished. He told me people didn't respect him for who he really was, she said. They only saw the money and the show. But he believed if they saw this, she pointed toward the image, they'd never respect him again. The courtroom had completely changed. It wasn't just shocked anymore. It was spinning out of control. Diddy had walked into court a powerful celebrity. Now, he was just a sad joke unraveling one humiliating moment at a time. And the worst parts hadn't even come yet. It became clear to everyone that this wasn't just about proving character or control anymore. It had turned into a full-blown show of his private life and broken pride, paraded for everyone to see. The jury couldn't unsee what had been put in front of them. Juror number 6, a middle-aged man, blinked over and over while nervously tapping his fingers. Juror number 9, a young woman, kept covering her mouth every time a new photo came up.
Juror number 2 squirmed in his chair, like he couldn't take it anymore, not because of what was in the pictures, but because of the desperation behind them. The judge was clearly losing his grip on the room. He finally turned to the crowd and gave a serious warning. "Let me be clear," he said. "This is not a circus. This is not for your entertainment. I will clear this courtroom if I hear one more laugh or outburst." But even with his strong tone, the mood couldn't be controlled. Something had changed permanently. The smooth, confident, filthy rich music mogul known as Diddy was gone. The photos didn't just show his body. They revealed his fear. They exposed a man stripped of his carefully crafted image. Yasmin went on with her testimony. Her tone had changed again. It wasn't mocking anymore. Now it was quiet, personal, maybe even a little sad. "He didn't send those pictures for fun," she said softly. "He sent them when he felt afraid."
Afraid I'd leave? Afraid I'd laugh. He'd always follow up with something like, "Don't tell anyone. Please, you know I can't handle that kind of heat." Then image 6 was shown. It was a selfie taken from below the waist. In it, Diddy held a small stuffed animal next to himself. The caption read, "Tootsie and Teddy miss you." Diddy saw the image on screen and stood up halfway from his chair, then dropped back down. His lawyer leaned in and told him to breathe. But Diddy just covered his face and started rocking slowly back and forth. Yasmin turned to the jury. "He begged me not to do this," she said. "He told me they'll make fun of me forever. But I say this, maybe he should have thought about that before making me feel small for years, before making others feel small too." The prosecutor didn't speak. He let the silence fill the courtroom. And in that silence, the only sound was Diddy's quiet crying.
This wasn't just some digital evidence anymore. It had turned into revenge. When it was time for the defense to question her, Diddy's lead lawyer stood and walked toward the witness stand. He took a deep breath, clearly trying to reset the mood in the room. "Miss Taylor," he began, "would you say your relationship with Mr. Combs was consensual?" "Yes," she answered immediately. "Then why are you here today?" he asked. "Is this about justice or revenge?" She blinked slowly, then smiled. "It's about the truth," she replied. "And if the truth feels like revenge to him, maybe it's because the lie felt like love to me." The jurors snapped their heads toward her. The defense lawyer tried another question. "Isn't it true you tried to sell your story to the press before?" "No," she answered without hesitation. "They reached out to me. I said no until now." "Why now?" he asked. "Because I wanted the world to see him the way he sees himself when he's scared." She said,
"Small, hiding, crying in silk robes. I wanted them to see the man behind the shades." Then she made a bold move. She reached into a folder and pulled out a printed photo that had already been approved by the prosecution. It was image 7. Diddy in a bathrobe holding a handwritten sign. The sign read, "Tootsie says sorry." The courtroom froze again. The judge looked like he might shut it all down. But instead, he turned to the jury and asked, "Do you need a break?" The jurors didn't respond. They didn't have to. They had seen enough. The defense attorney returned to his seat. He had nothing left to say. And Diddy, he had stopped crying. Now he just sat there, staring into nothing. Outside the courtroom, the chaos had already spread. No cameras were allowed inside, but that didn't stop the news from pouring out. Reporters, sketch artists, and bloggers had started describing the courtroom drama in real time.
Social media exploded! By the time court paused for lunch, Twitter was in full meltdown. The top 5 global trends were all about one thing. Hashtag Tootsie Rollgate, hashtag Diddy in court, hashtag King Tootsie, hashtag Tootsie Leaks. Not so bad, boy. Posts came in non-stop. Some laughing, some shocked, some worried. Sketches from the courtroom began going viral. One showed Diddy crying at the table. Another showed Yasmin confidently pointing at the screen behind her. On that screen were the words, "Tootsie says goodnight." Memes flooded the internet. Side-by-sides with candy bars. Photoshops comparing Diddy to other celebrities who had fallen from grace. Even fake rap lyrics making fun of the nickname Tootsie. One tweet blew up fast. Diddy went from "can't stop, won't stop" to "please stop, I'm crying" in one afternoon. Celebrities started chiming in. One rapper tweeted, "Told you all about him years ago." A famous actress posted, "When women laugh, the world listens." Yas, queen.
Even veteran journalists who had covered Diddy's career were stunned. One former music writer tweeted, "Never thought I'd see the day Diddy became the punchline to his own empire." Back inside the courtroom, the buzz outside couldn't be heard. But the damage had already been done. Yasmin had pulled back the curtain with precision. She showed the world what many had suspected but couldn't prove. That Diddy's empire wasn't just built on music or business. It was built on image. And now that image was falling apart. Court officers whispered among themselves as the prosecution prepared to continue. Even the judge, who had held steady all day, looked more drained. He returned to the bench and gave one last warning. "Any more yeeks will be dealt with seriously," he said. But it was already too late. The internet doesn't rewind. It only moves forward. And for Diddy, the next chapter was now out of his hands. It was being written by screenshots, memes, mockery.
And a woman who wasn't scared of him anymore. When the court resumed, something felt different. The laughter had stopped. Outside, the memes still raged, but inside the courtroom, things had turned serious. What started as a spectacle had become something deeper. A story about fear, control, and how fragile celebrity power really is. Yasmin's voice changed too. Gone was the sarcasm and jokes. Now she spoke with steady, quiet strength. "You all laughed," she said, looking around the room. "It's easy to laugh at pictures, but what you didn't see were the messages that came with them." She reached into a folder and held up printed copies of text conversations. They were messages Diddy had sent her late at night, sometimes after fights, sometimes for no reason. They were full of desperation, jealousy, and sad apologies. And often, they came with those embarrassing selfies. He used those images like weapons, she said.
"When I tried to leave, he'd send them. He'd say things like, 'You'll never find better,' or 'This is all you get now.'" Her voice cracked slightly, but she didn't cry. "I played along because I was scared," she said. "Not scared of being hit, but scared of being erased. In Hollywood, when a man like him decides you're done, you disappear. No more parties, no more jobs, no more safety." She paused. "These weren't just selfies," she continued. "They were signs of how he controlled us. You see the silly captions? The baby talk? That's how he made us feel small, so he could stay big. The gallery was silent. The jurors were completely focused. The prosecutor asked if she felt safe sharing these images. "No," Yasmin answered, "but I feel powerful." At that point, the defense said they had no more questions. Diddy's lawyer scribbled notes furiously, whispering to another attorney beside him. Then, unexpectedly, the judge turned to the courtroom and spoke.
"No more images will be shown today," he said. "This court understands their importance, but we also understand the pain caused by shame. Judges rarely speak so personally, but this wasn't an ordinary trial. Diddy had stopped crying, but he still hadn't moved. His eyes looked empty. The man once known for confidence, mystery, and media power now sat there, surrounded by cold screens and haunted silence. This trial was no longer about private parts. It was about a much bigger lie, and how that lie had grown so massive it finally collapsed under one painful truth. Then the prosecutor said they would end Yasmin's testimony with one final piece of evidence. "There's one more image," the lawyer said. "It may seem small, but it might say the most." The courtroom lights dimmed. The screen lit up. The last photo was grainy and dark, not posed, not meant to be funny. It showed Diddy sitting at the edge of his bed in a dim room, lit only by the glow of his phone.
He was shirtless, wrapped in a blanket. His legs were crossed tightly. Next to him sat a stuffed toy. In his hand, he held a handwritten note up to the camera, like a confession. It read, "King Tootsie is tired." Everyone in the room exhaled at once. It wasn't funny anymore. Diddy's lawyer stood up to object, but the judge denied it. "Let it stay," the judge said. Yasmin spoke one last time, without being asked. "He sent that at 3 a.m., she said. "It was after I told him I didn't want to talk to him anymore. He said if I ghosted him, he'd leak my photos. I told him I'm not scared anymore." She looked directly at Diddy, and now neither is the world. At the defense table, Diddy dropped his head. He didn't move for several minutes. The whole courtroom sat in silence, barely breathing. When Diddy finally lifted his head, he wasn't angry. He wasn't crying either. He was just empty.
Even the ability to feel embarrassed had left him. The judge ended court for the day. Reporters rushed out. The gallery buzzed in whispers. But the image stayed stuck in everyone's mind. Not because of what it showed, but because of what it meant. The legend was gone, and in his place sat a man known only by a nickname he once thought was harmless. King Tootsie. The courtroom hadn't just seen evidence. They had witnessed the fall of a myth, one picture at a time, and from that day forward, no one ever said his name the same way again.